spirited battle in Dresden. Plus, Gallia Academy will need to bounce back if they want a shot at the Ironton Tigers. And in our game of the week, the TVC Ohio is up for grabs in a long-awaited championship rematch.
Buckle up! Gridiron Glory starts right now!
The story around Southeast Ohio football towns is clear tonight, and conference title games, it's conference title games, and we saw a bunch of them. Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Jacob Mata, alongside senior reporter Jack Demler. And Jack, you got to see a conference title game for yourself tonight.
Jacob, it's a big week in the TVC Ohio, big enough to make our game of the week. The conference crown was on the line for Nelsonville, York, and Vinton County for a second year in a row, but more on that later in the show.
For now, let's take a look at what's in store tonight. 6 Showtime games from around the region. And throughout the show, we'll make our way down this list.
And we've got 4 digital games, so make sure you stick around for a sneak peek from our very own senior reporter, Chloe G. Workman.
We start tonight in the MVL. Reporter Cade Williamson was there, and he joins us to break this one down.
Jacob, this game has always circled around the calendars of these MVL powerhouses, and this year is no exception, as the matchup between the Scotties and the Generals is the de facto MVL Big School Division title game. And the last 10 years, Tri-Valley has had a share of the title, at least 8 MVL titles, while Sheridan stands at 4. With a win tonight, the Scotties would clinch another share of an MVL title, needing a Week 10 victory over John Glenn to make it outright. For Sheridan, all they have to do is win tonight, and they would take sole possession of the MVL Big title. The winner of this ball game also locks up a top 3 seed in Division III Region 11 playoffs. However, the main question about the play on the field circled around the Generals 2 QB system of Reed Packer and Caden Sheridan. They matched up against the Scotty stout defense, and oh boy, let me tell you, we were in for a treat. First off, shout out to the Scotties for making their own GG polo. That's a class act right there. Speaking of class acts, the defenses in this ball game showed what the MVL is made of. We had some old-fashioned smash-mouth football tonight at Jack Anderson Stadium. But late in the first half, both teams found the end zone, as we got a mossler from Jaden Walker. Get up, young man. Plucked it out of the air to tie this game at 7 heading into half. Both teams struggled to start the second half, but the other Jaden Wallace, dove and found pay dirt for the Scotties. However, special teams came back to bite Tri-Valley as the PAT was blocked. Sheridan took the advantage as deep into the fourth quarter, Reed Packer found Drew Boyer for 6, and a made PAT gave the Generals the 14-13 advantage. Tri-Valley might call themselves the Dogs, but they were rounded up by the Generals in their 2 QB system tonight. With the win tonight, Sheridan claims the outright MVL Big School Division title, continuing their dominance when playing at Tri-Valley. The Generals have now won 4 out of the last 7 matchups in Dresden, which is quite an interesting stat considering the hostile environment. Mata, the Generals did not allow the Scotties to mess with their play.
You know, Kate, it seems like this one was an upset for Sheridan. What led them to defeating Tri-Valley tonight?
Well, first off, got to talk about the Tri-Valley faithful in general. They seem to show up every single Friday night, and I think it's safe to say it fuels the Scotty defense. They were making plays left and right all night long.
Speaking of that defense, would you say it's one of the best in the 7-4L?
Oh, no doubt, Mata. No doubt in my mind. Tri-Valley's defense is the heart and soul of this team and will help them in a stacked region during the playoffs. But the real story tonight was Sheridan.
Yeah, Kate, it looked like Sheridan's defense was solid. What does that mean for next week?
Well, the Perry County Super Bowl is not one to miss, as the Generals will face New Lexington in their offense with Hunter Rose and Lucas Ratliff, who will have to step it up next week. Sheridan hasn't lost to New Lexington since 2013, so we'll have to see how it plays out.
Thanks for the great work, Cade, and we have another title game in the FAC. The Jackson Ironmen went to battle tonight against the Washington Courthouse Blue Lions, and this one was a high-scoring affair. For this one, we welcome FAC reporter Zach Mothersbaugh to break it down.
Yeah, thanks, Mata. Jackson has dominated the conference since its formation in 2017, but entering tonight, this game, Washington had the chance to take the top spot, and to keep it, they'd have to beat the Ironmen for the first time ever. They have to win the battle of these 2 quarterbacks. Both Jacob Winters and Troy Thompson are playing at a GG Player of the Year caliber. Before tonight, Winters had tossed for 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns on the season, but Thompson is over the 2,000 mark at 2,360 and 26 touchdowns on over 100 more attempts. The Washington QB would have to clean up the turnovers, though, as he's thrown 12 on the season, and he can't do that if he wants to beat this sound Jackson football team. As the teams took the field, that's just what the Blue Lions looked to do, and it didn't start well with a quick 3-and-out and a 25-yard touchdown to Brody Butcher. Then, another 3-and-out gave Jacob Winters the ball back, and a Houdini act in the pocket got him out of the tackle, and he found Butcher in the end zone. Next drive, the defense decides forcing punts just isn't enough, as Eli Browerman jumps the post and picks it off, getting the ball deep into Washington territory, and Cade Wolford would cap it off with a touchdown. Then, 2 straight rushing touchdowns put the Ironmen up 42. The first one was a bruising one from 2 yards out by Nolan Johnson, and the next came from 8 yards out as Eli Browerman found a seam and made a splash play, this time for the offense. The 42-0 score would hold at half, and it wouldn't be close the rest of the game as Jackson wins it 63-21.
Now, Zach, you mentioned the level of quarterback play. How'd they look tonight?
Well, Jacob Winters did as Jacob Winters does. He was dominant. However, they don't always give him the ball so much. They like to lean on their running backs. Cade Wolford, Eli Browerman, they give him the ball on the ground a lot. But when Jacob Winters does get the ball, he looks great. He's able to find his big-time playmakers in Brody Butcher. Cade Wolford, again, he does everything for that team. And he was able to put the ball in the right spot when he needed to. And he always has a feeling for the time of the game. So early in the game, he finds an early touchdown to Brody Butcher that put him up on a seam route. It was very great what he was able to do in that game. And moving on to the next quarterback, Troy Thompson, he's thrown, like I said, now 15 interceptions on the season after that game. And he didn't clean it up for this game. He didn't do what he needed to do, keeping the turnovers away. And when you give Jackson the ball, they will take advantage of it. With this Jackson win now, we have a clearer view of the conference.
Now, Jackson has the lead in the FAC. What do they need to do to keep it?
Well, they're going into Chillicothe next week. You win, you're in. You have the FAC title, and that's just what they're going to need to do. Chillicothe, they played a close game against Miami Trace, and they lost by 10 to Courthouse. This team they already beat. So we'll see what they can do next week.
Now, if that game ends up in Chillicothe's favor, that'll open it up for a Washington share, correct?
Yeah, Washington is going to be moving on to Miami Trace, who, like I said, 35-28 in overtime against Chillicothe last week, and this week they put the pounding on McLean. It was 40-11. So when Jackson goes to face Chillicothe, we'll see what they can do. And when Courthouse goes to face Miami Trace, if that game ends up in a Chillicothe win, we'll see what Washington Courthouse is able to do against Miami Trace. This is the only chance they have after today's loss.
And then...
And there's one more week in the FAC. We'll see what these teams are able to do, all of them moving forward.
Thanks for the great work, Zach. And fans at home, you guys thought this one would be a blowout, as the Ironmen took home 56% of the vote in their win over the Blue Lions, so y'all got that one right. And remember, you can cast your vote every week on Thursday nights and let us know who you think will win the games that we cover. Now, this next game was a pretty one-sided match with Ironton taking 71% of the vote over the Blue Devils. But this one was closer than expected, so let's move over to another conference race, the OVC. Senior reporter Chloe G. Workman joins me alongside Kayla McCleskey, to break down that race in the OVC.
Thank you, Jacob. And the Blue Devils needed to win this one against the Fighting Tigers if they wanted to stay alive for the OVC.
And Chloe, this one was circled on their calendar for a while, but they hit a stick in the mud last week.
Yeah, Caleb, I mean, that loss to Rock Hill, it really shocked me, and it does not look good on Gallia's schedule.
No, it was their first loss of the season, and it left a bunch of uncertainty. For Gallia to drop the homecoming game against a team below 500, that's 2 divisions below you, it's unexpected. 2 weeks ago, they were undefeated. Now, how could they expect to beat an offense as dominant as Ironton? But after the loss, head coach Cole Carter says this team's mindset is back where it needs to be.
Weeks ago, we prepare the same for every team, and I try to tell my boys, they're 15 to 18-year-old boys like us, and all the games don't get won on paper. And I think we figured that out last week for ourselves, being 7-0, going against a team that was 3-4. Just because you have that record doesn't mean the game's won. So let's play between a 100-yard field, and we're excited about it. We feel like we match up really well, our first 11, their first 11. If we can stay healthy, we feel like we have a really good chance.
Ironton's Caden Carpenter wanted to show off his arm as he threw this pass to Landon Wilson on a 4th down conversion, putting up the Tigers 7-0. On the next Ironton possession, Ty Perkins wanted to get in on the fun as he caught this target of a pass from Carpenter to get the first down. Plays later, Carpenter gets into the end zone off of the quarterback's knee to extend the Tigers' lead. Later in the second quarter, Jaquez Keys would find himself in the end zone, putting up Ironton 22-0. But Gallia Academy is not out of this game yet, as Hudson Chamberlain would get the first Blue Devils score of the game. Then after a scoreless third quarter and an offensive onslaught from Gallia Academy in the fourth, Ironton would win this game 29-22, keeping their undefeated win streak.
Caleb, when you're putting up offensive numbers like the Ironton Tigers are, it is hard for your opponents to win those games.
Yeah, Chloe, the Tigers offensively are lethal. I mean, how could you not with all this talent at their fingertips?
Why is Gallia losing their momentum, Caleb, and how do you think that they're going to really find their success in the playoffs?
Well, Chloe, in the loss against Rock Hill last week, Gallia Academy did not score in the fourth quarter, so they cannot be doing this in the postseason.
Now, on to Ironton. Who really was the shining star tonight?
If I had to say one person, it was Tatum Carpenter. He would make the correct plays when need be, whether that's a pass to Ty Perkins or a run for Jaquez Keys.
Now, looking forward to next week, Portsmouth is up against Ironton. Now, how do the Trojans protect the Coliseum and earn a share of that title with a win?
Well, Chloe, one name and one name only. Tyler Duncan, the Trojans quarterback. If he does not play out in this game the right way, the Trojans do not stand a chance against the Tigers.
Thank you so much, guys. I can't wait to see what happens between Portsmouth and Ironton, and we'll see how Gallia Academy fares in the playoffs. Switching over to the LCL, where we've seen some of the craziest finishes and wildest conference races to the season. To bring us up to speed, we now welcome in LCL reporter Ethan Sargent to break down a crucial LCL Cardinal showdown.
Mata, we've got an LCL Cardinal showdown for a share of the conference title, and the bad blood between Newark Catholic and Heath runs deep. Last year, these two played out a classic, with Heath claiming the crown, but you bet the Newark Catholic Green Wave have revenge on their mind as they look for a first conference title since 2019. Heath handed Newark Catholic a 28-21 loss in 2021, their only regular season loss as the Bulldogs clinched a second straight LCL Cardinal title. And you bet that both of those teams remember that game and have returning talent on offense. Mason Hackett's been one of the top running backs in the state with 886 yards and just 17 touchdowns in just 6 games. On the other side, junior quarterback Brandon Bayless leads the way for Heath. However, the Bulldogs lost a lot of senior talent last year, including 25 total touchdowns from running back Armani McCray and receiver Reese Huber. With both teams riding 3-game win streaks heading into this one, it was all up for grabs under the Friday night lights. And the football weather was perfect, and the Heath Bulldogs were looking to defend home field on senior night. But a Green Wave rolled into town looking to dethrone the champs. Let's check in on the third drive of the game to watch Mason Hackett go to work. The long drive would be capped off by this 1-yard score by Hackett, and the Green Wave take an early 7-0 lead. The defense continued to hold in the second for Newark Catholic, and you can never truly stop Mason Hackett. You can only hope to contain him, as he punches in his second score of the night, 14-0 Green Wave. However, the Bulldogs were not going to roll over. With 26 seconds left in the half, Brandon Bayless connects with receiver Scott Humphrey to have the deficit going into the locker room. After a long drive that took up most of the third quarter, guess who gets the call on 3rd and goal from the one? You got it, Mason Hackett with his third touchdown of the night, 21-7 Green Wave, and they would ice it. Early in the fourth, as Hutchinson got in on the fun with the swing pass to Trent Clark, he would take it all the way, and that would lock it in for Newark Catholic as they ran out 35-7 winners. Looking ahead to next week, Newark Catholic takes on 1-8 Northridge, while Heath heads to 3-6 Johnstown. Newark Catholic has already clinched a share of the LCL Cardinal title, but a win next week would solidify them as the LCL Cardinal standalone champs. The conference championships in both the Cardinal and LCL Buckeye, which we'll discuss later with Granville's matchup with Licking Valley, will come down to the final week.
Now, Ethan, we just spoke about Mason Hackett. Tell me what kind of an impact he had tonight.
Well, Mata, he sure did his thing for the Green Wave. Mata, one word to describe this guy is bulldozer. Every play leaves would-be tacklers in a heap behind him, and he's got speed too. The total package for a dominant running back in the 7-4-0. He's the focal point of a ridiculously efficient rushing attack. The Green Wave had 186 yards on just 24 rushes in the first half tonight.
Now, how did Braden Bayless and Heath hold up from the star talent of 2021?
Mata, it was a mixed bag tonight for Brandon Bayless and the Bulldogs. Newark Catholic has a ferocious defense that hardly gave Heath an inch, but even with limited momentum, Bayless flashed his talent, but the effort wasn't enough in the loss.
Looking ahead for Newark Catholic, how are they preparing in their attempt to repeat a Division 27 championship?
Mata, the Green Wave's goal to get back to Canton. Of course, that all starts with winning Division 27, where they may run into fellow 7-4-0 foes River, Waterford, or Caldwell. But honestly, Mata, I'm not sure if any of those teams can stop Mason Hackett and the Green Wave. With the win, Newark Catholic clinches a share of their first LCL Cardinal title since 2019 and gains critical momentum in the playoff push.
It's all heating up for the LCL. Thanks for the great work, Ethan. Heading over to the TVC Hawking, the Waterford Wildcats took on the Trimble Tomcats, trying to strip them of their conference crown on their own field. TVC hockey reporter Cameron Nupp joins us to break that down.
Yeah, Jacob, there is no love lost between the Tomcats and the Wildcats, and this one was set up to be a passing of the torch between the two programs. With a win, Waterford would all but clinch what has been Trimble's conference on Trimble's field. The Tomcats came into this season having won the TVC Hawking outright every year since 2018, but the Tomcats come into this week desperately needing an upset. A Trimble win would mean a three-way tie at the top of the Hawking and a 97% chance at the playoffs, according to Drew Pasteur. But with a loss, the Tomcats would be eliminated from the postseason. We skip to the second quarter. Jake Pantelidis keeps this one on the quarterback keeper, makes a man miss, and brings it all the way to the Tomcats' 3-yard line. Lane Klein would punch it in 2 plays later, and the 2-point conversion makes it 8-0 Waterford. Later in the second, Pantelidis hits Gabe Ponchak on the swing pass, who gets a block, is going to head for the sideline, and races his way into the end zone for the touchdown. 14-0 Wildcats. End of the half, Trimble pulls out the double pass for Max Frank, who makes a circus catch over this defender. 4th and goal for Trimble. Burdette finds Frank again in the back of the end zone to make it 14-6 at the half. But Waterford would hang on to this one. 30-6 is your final. They run away with the game and the TVC Hockey title. We talked to Coach Eric McCutcheon about what it means for his program.
Trimble's a really tough place to play, obviously. That's an awesome program. It's huge to beat them over here. That's big for our program. So super excited for our kids. It was a great challenge. We played pretty well tonight, had a few mistakes, but things we can work on, things we can correct. But
Waterford finally gets over the hump to beat Trimble, giving them at least a share of the TVC Hawking title. They can officially take the outright crown by handling business next week against Belpre, a team that had just scored 3 points coming into Week 8.
Now, Cam, Waterford's quarterback Jake Pantelidis has been huge for the Wildcats all year, but I hear the defense really stepped up tonight.
Yeah, that's right, Jacob. Pantelidis has established himself as the best player in the TVC Hawking this year, but this was the defense's night to shine. They held the Tomcat offense scoreless until their last drive of the first half, and they wouldn't concede another point for the rest of the night, forcing 2 turnovers in the process.
Now, Cam, this has been a historically tough season for Trimble, and this one just kind of seemed like the nail in the coffin tonight.
Yeah, Jacob, with that loss, Trimble will miss the postseason for the first time since 2009.
Yeah, Cam, what's gone wrong for Trimble this year?
Well, coming into the season, we knew that the Tomcats were going to be young, but even more than that, injuries and a general lack of the normal swagger we see from Trimble just never allowed this season to get off the ground. Looking ahead to next year, Coach Ferris says his team will be more experienced and ready to improve.
Next year we won't have to do all that groundwork. It's already been laid, so we can just start adding and maybe throwing out some plays that we're not comfortable with, and finding we've got to find something that we can lay our hat on.
Yeah, Cam, those are some great words to hear from Coach Ferris. Thanks for the great work. And now, before we get into our game of the week, it's time to break down our digital games for this week. Now, I want to invite senior reporter Chloe back to give us the run-through.
Thanks, Jacob. And as we round down towards the end of conference play, a lot of big games are on our schedule, and I can't wait to bring you through them. Now, the first game we're going to see is Waverly and Minford. Now, this was a do-or-die game for Waverly, and they sure played like it. With the win, they officially clinched the playoffs for the 7th year in a row. They jumped up early, and they did not let up. Now, even though they lost, Minford still has snuck their way into playoffs. We'll have to see how they can pick themselves up against Valley next week. With this game in the rear view, the SOC is looking forward to Wheelersburg and Portsmouth West as they face off in the conference title game next week. Now, both teams are undefeated through conference play, and last year the Pirates picked up a secure win, so West is coming in with a chip on their shoulder. Now, moving on to Shenandoah and Barnesville, this game also is a deciding factor for the MOVL. But with this win, Barnesville has officially won the title outright. They hopped out to a quick 14-0 lead, but Shenandoah did not back down, scoring 2 touchdowns of their own. That did not shake the Shamrocks, though, as they scored 14 more and took home the win. And like I mentioned, with that win, Barnesville officially clinches the Mid-Ohio Valley League after going undefeated in their conference play. Now, River, on the other hand, has had a great season, but their loss to Barnesville earlier eliminates them from a share of the title. Now, the SVC has been interesting this year, and for this matchup tonight between Zane Trace and Paint Valley, the Pioneers have officially clinched at least a share of the title. Paint Valley jumped out and scored first, but the Pioneers put their foot on the gas. Now, heading into playoffs, they will need to tighten up on a defensive front to make a long run. But speaking of playoffs, with the conference clinch, Zane Trace has also officially clinched a home game for the first round of playoffs, with also a 97% chance of 2 home games. Now, looking past that, Paint Valley put up a good fight, but they will be finishing 3rd behind Unioto with hopes of making some noise in the playoffs. Granville, taking the win over Licking Valley tonight, has kept them alive in the LCL Buckeye title race. They will face Watkins Memorial next week for the crown. But in order to win, Granville needs to get their offense started earlier. Going into halftime, the Blue Aces only had 3 points on the board, and the Warriors' defense is one of the best in the conference. And after a rather easy win for Watkins Memorial, it seems like they have to have a hold over the LCL right now, but Granville is slowly sneaking their way up to the top after that exciting win over Licking Valley tonight. It will all come down to next week. Now, that was a lot of exciting games, and more lies ahead. Before that, if you want to see some more from your favorite teams, make sure you check out our Instagram and Facebook. And for all game recaps, check out our website at woub.org/gridiron. You can also find some behind-the-scenes action on our TikTok as well, and some of our top plays. It was an action-packed week, Jacob, and while some conference titles are already won, we're still looking forward to some more next week.
Yeah, Chloe, and speaking of conference titles, what you've all been waiting for, a rematch for the TVC Ohio between Vinton County and Nelsonville York. Jack Demler was there for that highly anticipated matchup.
Jacob, the Buckeyes traveled to MacArthur seeking their 2nd conference title in a row and their 3rd in 4 years. Meanwhile, the Vikings are looking for their first share of the TVC title since 1999. Last season, when these teams met in Bookdale for the conference title, the Buckeyes, led in large part by Leighton Logie and Hudson Stalder, won 20-7. Since then, the Vikings have been locked in on this rematch all season long. When I talked to head coach TJ Carper in the preseason, he referred to the Buckeyes as the team they want to be and the team they want to beat. But this year, the Vikings have battled a lot of adversity, especially at the quarterback position. 2 weeks ago in their game against Warren, Vikings quarterback Zeke Mullahan tore his ACL, MCL, and meniscus, sidelining the senior for the year. That made room for sophomore Parker Schonborn to step in.
Yeah, Jack, and we visited the Vinton County Vikings last week, and Coach Carper said this was just the latest in their series of hurdles. But he's keeping the team strong and against adversity from the momentum that Zeke was injured.
How are you going to handle it? How are you going to handle that adversity? How are you going to handle that Zeke's down? How are you going to handle that we're down 20-7? How are you going to handle that? So we're going to see who this Vinton County team is.
No mental mistakes today. All effort, all gas, no breaks, and no mistakes.
Can't lose. Can't lose. Can't lose for us, but can't lose for the community in our town.
So our goal is literally right here in front of our face right now. I always say that. You can reach out and you can take those goals. You can reach out and grab them, but they're here right now. It is here right now.
Yes, sir.
You don't get too many opportunities for a second chance. This is a second chance for you guys that witnessed this last year, and we got to get it right this time. Something that hasn't been done in over 20 years. It is your time to leave your legacy. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered? Think about that question tonight.
1, 2, 3.
Be Nelsonville! And Jacob, this year's team had one last chance to leave a legacy and overcome adversity, bring home the TVC title. And now I want to start with the major 4th down play. Late in the Vikings' first drive, 4th and 8, Parker Schonborn connects with Garrett Brown, who takes it to the 4-yard line for the first. And on the very next play, Brown gets the job done finding pay dirt. Buckeyes would waste no time responding on their opening drive, however. 3rd and 18, Makai Williams airing it out for Landon Inman, who ignores the tight coverage and says, "I'll take that." 7-6, Vikings still lead. On NY's next drive, Williams dropping back in the pocket again, but Brown would read him like a book and snag the INT and take it all the way for the house call. You flex on him, big man. Late in the first half, Buckeyes driving down the field, Mackay looking end zone, but the pass is broken up. Now a flag does get thrown for PI, but I'll let you be the judge of that. 2 plays later, Williams would find a wide open Gavin Richards in the corner of the end zone for the touchdown, and on the 2-point conversion, Williams would find Logie. Jacob, we got a tied game at half. Now late in the third, Inman out of the Wildcat gives the Buckeyes their first lead of the game. Vikings would battle back but fall just short to NY, 21-20. And now the Vikings had their chance late but unfortunately could not get the job done. And now Nelsonville York has clinched their second straight TVC title.
Yeah, Jack, it seems like the Vikings came out firing, but they seem to have lost some momentum toward the end of the first half. What happened?
Well, Jacob, I want to take us back to 3 of the biggest plays that we saw, starting with that pass interference call. Now, we saw this earlier in the night. Williams looking end zone. Now, this pass is broken up. From my angle, it looks like a clean pass breakup, but the refs must have saw something different, leading to the PI call, and that led to this wide open touchdown pass to Gavin Richards. You just can't leave him open like that. And when it's 2 points to tie the game, you've got to find Leighton Logie. The Buckeyes sure did, and that's what led to a halftime tie, and that ultimately gave the Buckeyes the momentum heading in. So it was the Buckeyes' newfound momentum in the end of the first half that led them to their second straight title.
Now, Jack, it's Schonborn's second official start against a much more. Jack, you mentioned that the Vikings had their shot. It seemed like Jack, it seems like they. Thanks for the great work, Jack. That's all for tonight's game. Still one more big announcement ahead, but in the meantime, remember that the Fan Base Frenzy is entering its final week. 8 teams in the search for Southeast Ohio's best fan base, and they're facing off in the bracket you see on your screen here. The next round of the voting takes place on 6:30 p.m. on Monday, so check into our Instagram for the latest. Every year we look for the players who make the biggest impact on their teams, the guys that put in the work so they shine underneath the Friday night lights. And now we're ready to release our list of 12 players up for Gridiron Glory Player of the Year. We start with Tavion Galloway, tight end from Chillicothe. He is the kind of guy that college scouts love, putting in 587 receiving yards so far this season. Our next guy is terrorizing the LCL on the ground, Mason Hackett from Newark Catholic. The Green Wave running back has blew by anyone in his path this season. Chase Hall from Cole Grove has the most rushing yards in our coverage area with 1,699, and he's got 30 touchdowns to go along with those yards. Tanner Lamaster is another highly scouted guy on our list. He is super athletic and has 514 yards and 8 touchdowns so far this season. Leighton Logie is a defensive menace in the TVC Ohio. He has 121 total tackles and 18 tackles for loss, playing linebacker for Nelsonville York. Andrew Marshall from Bloom Carroll is another guy you don't want to meet in the A-gap. He got 118 tackles and 18 tackles for loss this season for the Bulldogs. Cambridge's quarterback Caden Moore has the most passing yards in our coverage area. He's thrown for 2,136 yards and has 25 passing touchdowns. Up next, Ty Perkins from Ironton. He's hauled in 717 receiving yards, and he just might be the most talented player on any field he's stepped on. Jackson Price is a workhorse for Union Local, and he's rushed for 1,623 yards and has 25 touchdowns running over competition in the OVAC. Hunter Rose is tearing up the MVL, rushing for 1,203 yards and 18 touchdowns. Plus, he's got 238 receiving yards on the season. Ryan Sissel is a feared name on the SOC, and he's racked up 79 tackles this season, and on the year, he's rushed for 1,048 yards as well for Portsmouth West. And our last player on the list is Jacob Winters from Jackson, the highly scouted talent that has totaled 1,902 yards and 17 touchdowns this season. And that's all the time we have for your night. Remember, there's nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory.
Support comes from the law firm of Bricker and Eckler, providing legal services in the Southeast Ohio region for energy, education, government, and business counsel. More information at bricker.com/southeast. Additional support from Donato's Pizza, featuring pizza, subs, salads, and catering from their Athens location at 688 East State Street. Information at donatospizza.com or 7